I never thought I'd find someone else's hotel room key in her coat pocket until I decided to do her laundry after she forgot for the third time that week. My name is Oscar, I'm 31 years old and I work as a pipeline engineer in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My wife Barbara is a sound engineer at one of the local music studios. We've been married for 4 years and we have a wonderful daughter, Vanessa, who just turned 2. It seemed like we had everything: stable jobs, a cozy 2-bedroom apartment in Midtown, a healthy relationship. But that winter evening in February 2025 changed everything. That day I came home earlier than usual. We just wrapped up another pipeline modernization project at work, and management let us go at 4. Barbara was supposed to pick up Vanessa from daycare at 6, so I had some time to myself. I decided to tackle the mountain of laundry that had accumulated. Barbara had been complaining constantly about being tired lately, and I wanted to help. Going through the clothes, I pulled out her beige coat that she'd worn the previous week. Something rattled in the pocket, a small plastic keychain with the logo of 10 Killer Lodge Hotel and room number 217. I froze. We'd never been to that hotel. Moreover, Lake 10 Killer was 90 kilometers from Tulsa. Too far for a short trip she'd never mentioned. I placed the keychain on the table and continued sorting through the clothes. In the inner pocket of the same coat, I found a receipt from Sunset Grill restaurant by the lake. The date, January 28th, a week ago. Barbara had told me she was working late that day on a new album for a local artist. But the receipt showed an order for 2 filet mignon shrimp, 2 bottles of expensive wine. The total, almost $200. It felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I sat down on the couch, holding the receipt in my hands. My brain refused to accept it. Barbara? My Barbara, who kissed me every morning before leaving for work, who hugged our Vanessa so tenderly, who fell asleep every night with her head on my chest. This had to be a mistake. Maybe she went there with colleagues from the studio? But then why didn't she say anything? The next few days I watched her more carefully. Barbara had become someone else. She constantly checked her phone, quickly hiding it when I entered the room. In the evenings, when Vanessa fell asleep, Barbara didn't want to spend time with me like before. She said she was tired and would go take a shower, spending half an hour in there. Once I noticed her smiling while looking at her phone, such a genuine warm smile that I hadn't seen on her face in months. I started noticing other details. New lingerie appeared in her drawer, a lacy dark blue set, very revealing, that I'd never seen her wear. On her vanity stood a new bottle of Chanel Chance perfume, expensive and completely different from the light citrus scents she usually used. A thin gold bracelet with a small diamond gleamed on her wrist, one I definitely hadn't bought. When I asked about the bracelet, Barbara got confused for a second, then quickly answered that she bought it herself on sale. But I knew the prices for such things. This was at least $1,500, an amount we never spent on jewelry without discussion. The worst part was that physically she became cold with me. Before, we made love several times a week, but in the last 2 months, maybe twice. And even then she did it somehow mechanically, as if performing a duty. When I hugged her in the kitchen, she would gently but firmly pull away, smiling apologetically and saying something about needing to check on Vanessa or do laundry. She started staying late at work more often. Twice a week, then 3 times, sometimes even 4. She'd come home at 9, 10 at night, tired but somehow satisfied. Not exhausted like after a hard day's work, but satisfied, with a slight smile that disappeared as soon as she saw me. One evening, when Barbara was late again, I called the studio under the pretext of forgetting when our next pediatrician appointment for Vanessa was. They told me Barbara had left at 6 o'clock as usual, but she didn't come home until 9. 3 hours. Where had she been for those 3 hours? I couldn't live in uncertainty anymore. I had to act, but smartly. If I was wrong, I could ruin our relationship with unnecessary suspicions. And if I was right, then I needed irrefutable evidence. The next day I called my brother Larry. He lives in Oklahoma City and works for a large IT company. I told him everything I'd noticed. Larry was silent for a long time, then said, "Oscar, I hope you're wrong, but if you're not, I have an acquaintance, Matthew. He specializes in digital forensics. Can recover deleted messages, check cloud storage. If there's anything there, he'll find it." I met Matthew at a coffee shop near my work. He turned out to be a thin man around 35, wearing glasses, with a constantly focused expression. I showed him Barbara's phone. She'd left it home that morning, rushing to an important meeting. "How much time do you need?" I asked. 2 hours, maybe 3, Matthew replied. "I'll do a complete clone, then return the original to you. If she deletes messages regularly, they still remain in the system for a certain time. I'll also check her cloud storage. Many people don't know that photos are automatically saved there. I waited those 3 hours on edge. Drank coffee after coffee, stared out the window at the snowy street, tried not to think about the worst. When Matthew finally returned, his face was grim. "Oscar," he said quietly, "I found what you were looking for. But you're not going to like it." He opened his laptop and showed me a file. There were screenshots of Barbara's correspondence with someone named Jack. The messages started in November of last year, 2 months after she returned from that corporate Caribbean cruise. The first messages were innocent, exchanging impressions about the cruise, jokes, light flirting. Then it grew into something more. "I can't stop thinking about you," Barbara wrote. "You make me feel alive again." Jack responded just as passionately. "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever met. Can't wait to see you again." I scrolled through the screenshots, and with each subsequent message I felt worse. They were meeting. The villa at Lake Tenkiller, he rented it specifically for them. "Our little nest," Barbara called it. There were photos from the lake, selfies where they were hugging, smiling. In one photo she was wearing that same blue lacy set. In another, wearing that gold bracelet. "Who is this Jack?" I asked, barely moving my lips. Matthew shook his head. "Jack Collins, 37 years old. Owner of the Elegance Beauty Salon in downtown Tulsa. Divorced, has 2 kids who live with their mother. According to his social media, quite well off. The salon is successful, plus he has 2 more branches in Oklahoma City. A cosmetologist. My wife was cheating on me with a cosmetologist. Somehow this seemed particularly humiliating. I imagine how they met. Probably on that cruise she felt young, free, attractive. No diapers, no sleepless nights, no routine. And he, a confident beauty salon owner, used to seducing women, knew all the right words. There's more. Matthew showed me the calendar from Barbara's phone. She marks their meetings with code words. Studio session, client meeting, work conference. Actually, these are days when they see each other. Last time, the day before yesterday. She wrote him, "Can't wait for Wednesday. Missed you." Wednesday. That's the day after tomorrow. They were planning to meet the day after tomorrow. I thanked Matthew, paid him the agreed amount, and drove home. On the way I stopped by Lake Thunderbird, got out of the car and just stood there looking at the frozen water. The February wind burned my face, but I barely felt it. Inside, everything was burning, anger, pain, despair mixed into one unbearable mixture. Why did she do this? Was I a bad husband? I loved her, took care of her, of our daughter. I worked, provided for the family, helped around the house. Yes, maybe the last year was difficult. After Vanessa was born we were both tired, had less time for each other. But that's normal, everyone goes through that. That's no excuse for cheating. I decided not to confront Barbara immediately. I needed a plan. If I just accused her, she'd deny everything, delete the evidence, and I'd be left with nothing. No, I had to do this right. The next day, I opened a new bank account in my name at a different bank and transferred $35,000 from our joint savings account. This was money we'd been saving for a down payment on a house we dreamed about. Now those plans seemed like a joke. But I didn't want to risk it. If everything ended in divorce, at least part of our savings would be safe. Then I called Larry and asked him to find out more about Jack. A day later he called back. This guy really does have 3 beauty salons, quite popular. But here's an interesting detail. He got divorced a year ago, and the reason was infidelity. His wife found correspondence with a client. Obviously, he doesn't know how to keep his pants on. The information about the wife gave me an idea. If Jack was married and cheated, maybe his ex-wife would want to know he was continuing such games? But that was for later. On Wednesday, the day of their planned meeting, I told Barbara I was going to a work conference in Broken Arrow and would be back late. Actually, I took the day off and drove to Lake Tenkiller. 2 days before, I'd rented a small camera drone through a coworker who was into aerial photography. The villa they rented stood on the lake shore, slightly away from other houses. I parked a kilometer away in a wooded area and launched the drone. The camera showed a clear image. At 4 in the afternoon, Barbara's car arrived, our family Honda Accord. She got out, looked around, and quickly walked to the villa. 15 minutes later, a black Lexus pulled up. A man got out, tall, athletic build, wearing an expensive coat. He went into the villa, and through the windows I saw them embrace. I felt physically sick. I stopped recording and drove home. That night, when Barbara returned at 8, smiling and relaxed, I didn't say anything to her. I just hugged Vanessa, who was joyfully telling me about her day at daycare, and pretended everything was normal. Barbara kissed me on the cheek and went to take a shower. I made my decision. I wasn't going to destroy our family impulsively. But Barbara had to know that I knew. And she had to make the choice herself. The following Friday, when Vanessa was at daycare, I asked Barbara to come home early. Said we needed to talk about something important. She was surprised but agreed. When she entered the apartment, I was sitting at the kitchen table. In front of me lay printed screenshots of messages, photos from the villa, receipts, the hotel key. Barbara saw all this and froze in the doorway. Her face changed instantly, first surprise, then fear, then despair. "Oscar," she began, but I interrupted her. 4 months, Barbara. 4 months you've been cheating on me with Jack. Don't try to deny it. I have all the evidence. She dropped into a chair, covering her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook. I waited. Finally, she raised her eyes to me, full of tears. "How did you find out?" "It doesn't matter how," I replied. "What matters is why. Why did you do this? What did I do wrong?" Barbara was silent for a long time, wiping away tears. Then she spoke quietly in a broken voice. "You didn't do anything wrong, Oscar. It's me. After Vanessa was born, I felt lost. I stopped being Barbara. I just became a mom, a wife. I gained weight, was constantly tired, forgot what it was like to feel like a woman, attractive, desired. And then on that cruise I met Jack. He looked at me like I was the most beautiful woman in the world. He said things to me that made me feel young again. And that justifies cheating?" My voice was cold as ice. "No," she shook her head. "Of course not. I know it's terrible. I know I destroyed your trust, our relationship. But at first it was just attention, compliments. I didn't plan for it to go this far. 4 months isn't a mistake, Barbara. It's a conscious choice. Every time you lied to me about staying late at work. Every time you drove to him at the lake. Every time you kissed me after coming back from him. That was a choice." She cried, but I couldn't stop. Everything that had built up over the past weeks came pouring out. "You know what hurts the most? Not the sex itself. Not that you slept with him. But that you betrayed me every single day. You looked me in the eyes and lied. You hugged our daughter and went to another man. You slept next to me and thought about him." "Oscar, please." She reached out her hand to me, but I pulled away. "Don't touch me. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust you again." The next few minutes were the hardest of my life. Barbara begged for forgiveness, said she loved me, that Jack was just a mistake, an infatuation, that she wanted to save our family. I listened and tried to understand what I really felt. Anger? Yes. Pain? Absolutely. But also, love. I still loved this woman. Despite everything, despite the betrayal, despite the lies, I loved her. And I thought about Vanessa. About our 2-year-old daughter who needed both parents. Finally I spoke. "I don't know if we can overcome this, Barbara. But if you really want to try, there are conditions. Not suggestions, conditions. And if you break even one, we're done. Understood?" She nodded, wiping away tears. "First, you cut off all contact with Jack. Right now, in front of me, you'll write him that it's over. Block him everywhere. If he tries to contact you, you tell me immediately." "Okay," she whispered. "Second, complete transparency. I have access to your phone, your laptop, your social media. Always. You'll turn on geolocation and I'll be able to see where you are." She nodded again. "Third, we go to marriage counseling. Together. And you go to individual therapy to figure out why you did this." "I agree," she said. "And fourth," I paused because the next part was the hardest. "You quit the studio. There are a lot of people there who were on that cruise who might have known about Jack. I don't want you to be in an environment every day that reminds you of him." Barbara flinched. "Oscar, that's my career." "I know," I interrupted. "But if you want to save our family, that's the price. You'll find another job. There are other studios in Tulsa, freelance projects. But not there." She looked at me for a long time, then nodded. "All right. I'll do it." That same day, Barbara wrote Jack a message in front of me. "Jack, we need to stop. My husband found out everything. Don't write or call me anymore. This was a mistake from the very beginning." Then she blocked his number, his social media profiles, deleted all their photos. But I wasn't finished. I had one more plan for Jack. Through Matthew, I found the contacts of Jack's business partners, people who co-invested in his beauty salons. I also learned that he was actively working on a franchise, trying to attract new investors. Through an anonymous email, I sent them evidence of how Jack behaved with clients and wives of potential partners. Nothing illegal, just facts, screenshots of his correspondence with several women, not just Barbara, photos, testimonies. A week later, Larry calls me. "I don't know what you did, but Jack's salon lost 2 major investors. One of them publicly stated he doesn't want to deal with someone with such a questionable reputation. Looks like your friend got a lesson. This wasn't about revenge. This was about Jack understanding that actions have consequences. That you can't just ruin other people's lives without accountability. The following weeks were hell. Barbara quit the studio and started looking for a new job. We signed up with a family therapist, Chelsea, a woman in her 50s with a calm voice and intelligent eyes. The first sessions were painful. I expressed my anger, Barbara cried and explained her feelings. We dissected our relationship piece by piece, trying to understand what went wrong. Chelsea helped us see not just the infidelity but what led to it. Barbara's postpartum depression that we both ignored. My excessive focus on work after Vanessa was born, when I tried to earn more, forgetting about emotional support for my wife. Our lack of intimacy, of simple conversations that used to connect us. Infidelity is a symptom, not the disease, Chelsea said at one of the sessions. The disease is what was happening in your relationship before the affair. And if you want to heal, you need to work on the causes, not just the consequences. Slowly, very slowly, we began to recover. Barbara found work as a freelancer, working from a home studio on projects for independent musicians. This gave her more flexibility, more time with Vanessa. And importantly, she was under my control, not in the sense of restriction but in the sense of safety. I knew where she was, what she was doing. Trust returned slowly. Every time her phone rang, I felt a pang of anxiety. Every time she was 15 minutes late, I checked her location. But Barbara never complained. She understood the price of her actions and was willing to pay. 2 months after the confrontation, we made love for the first time since the affair. It was scary for both of us. For me because I was afraid I'd think about Jack, for her because she was afraid I'd push her away. But that didn't happen. It was tender, slow, and when we lay afterwards, embracing, Barbara whispered, "Thank you for giving me a chance. I promise I'll never let you down again." I didn't answer, just held her tighter. Words were empty now. Only time and actions could prove anything. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click like if you enjoy this story. I always read your comments and analyze which stories you like best so that I can create better stories. Thank you. I will continue the story. March turned into April. Vanessa celebrated her second birthday, and for the first time in months, we smiled genuinely watching her enjoy her cake. Larry came from Oklahoma City and, pulling me aside, said quietly, "You did the right thing, Oscar. Many men would have just left. But you fought. And it seems to be working." Maybe he was right. Maybe we really would survive. Trust was destroyed, but we were building something new on its ruins. Something stronger, more honest. Last week, Barbara showed me a letter she received from Jack. He somehow got her new email address and wrote, begging for a meeting, saying he still thought about her. Barbara immediately forwarded the letter to me and blocked the address. "I don't want to have anything to do with him," she said. "What was between us? It wasn't real. It was a fantasy, an illusion. And real is you, Vanessa, our family." I still can't say I've completely forgiven. The wounds are deep and scars will remain forever. But we're trying. Every day we make the choice to stay together, to fight, to rebuild what was destroyed. Vanessa is growing up, smiling, laughing. She doesn't know what we went through, and God willing, she'll never find out. To her, we're just mom and dad who love her and each other. And maybe, if we continue like this, if Barbara continues to prove her dedication, if I learn to trust again, maybe we really will survive this. Not like before, we'll never be like before. But as something new, more mature, more conscious. The betrayal changed us. But it didn't destroy us. Not yet. And as long as we're both fighting, as long as we're both trying, there's hope. The road ahead is long and uncertain. There are still moments when I wake up at night and the images flood back. Barbara with Jack at that villa, their embraces, their messages. In those moments, I have to remind myself of why I chose to stay. Not because it's easy, but because despite everything, the woman sleeping next to me is still the woman I fell in love with 7 years ago. She's flawed, she made a terrible mistake, but she's human. And she's fighting just as hard as I am to save what we built together. Barbara started individual therapy with a psychologist specializing in postpartum issues and identity crises. She came back from sessions often with red eyes, but also with insights. She shared them with me during our evening talks, after Vanessa went to sleep. Talks that had been absent from our relationship for far too long. "Dr. Morrison helped me understand something," she told me one night. "After Vanessa was born, I felt like I disappeared. Not physically, but my identity. Everything became about being a mother, a wife, an employee. I forgot who Barbara was. And instead of talking to you about it, instead of working through it together, I looked for validation elsewhere. That was my failure, Oscar. Not yours. Mine. These conversations were hard but necessary. We dissected our marriage, looking at all the small cracks that had formed over time. My tendency to bury myself in work when stressed. Her inability to ask for help when overwhelmed. Our gradual drift from the passionate, communicative couple we'd been to two people merely coexisting in the same space. Chelsea, our marriage counselor, gave us homework assignments. Date nights, where we had to talk about anything except Vanessa or work. Physical touch exercises, to rebuild intimacy without the pressure of sex. Writing exercises, where we each had to list what we appreciated about the other and what we needed from the relationship. Some of these exercises felt awkward at first. I remember the first date night, sitting across from Barbara at a small Italian restaurant in Brookside, both of us struggling to find conversation topics. We'd been together for 7 years, married for 4, but in that moment we felt like strangers on a blind date. But slowly we found our rhythm again. We talked about our dreams, hers of maybe opening her own recording studio one day, mine of eventually moving into pipeline design rather than just maintenance. We reminisced about our early dating days, when we'd spend hours at coffee shops debating everything from politics to our favorite movies. We laughed, really laughed for the first time in what felt like years. The physical intimacy took longer to rebuild. Even after that first time we made love post-affair, there was a hesitancy between us. I had to consciously push away images of her with Jack. She had to overcome the guilt that threatened to overwhelm her every time we were intimate. But with patience and communication, even this began to heal. One significant milestone came 3 months after the confrontation. Barbara got her first major freelance project, producing a full album for an up-and-coming country artist based in Nashville. The project would require some travel, including a week-long stay in Tennessee for recording sessions. The old Oscar, the pre-affair Oscar, would have been excited and supportive without hesitation. The new Oscar felt a knot of anxiety in his stomach. "I'll understand if you don't want me to take it," Barbara said when she told me about the opportunity. "I can recommend someone else." I thought about it for a full day. This was a test not just of Barbara but of me. Could I allow her independence while still feeling secure? Could I trust her again, or would I become a controlling husband, forever suspicious? I told her to take the job, but with conditions. We'd video call every night, she'd keep her location sharing on, and she'd be completely transparent about her schedule and who she was meeting with. Barbara agreed without hesitation. That week when she was in Nashville was one of the longest of my life. Every time she didn't answer her phone immediately, panic set in. But every time there was a legitimate reason. She was in a recording booth, she was in a meeting, her phone was charging in another room. And every night we video called, and I could see the hotel room behind her, the exhaustion on her face from long work days, the loneliness in her eyes. When she came home, she practically ran through the door, dropping her bags to hug Vanessa and then me. "I missed you so much," she said, tears in her eyes. "Both of you. I never want to be away that long again." That trip, paradoxically, helped. It showed both of us that we could handle separation, that the relationship could withstand distance, that trust was slowly, painfully being rebuilt. Larry visited again in May, bringing his new girlfriend, Emma. Over dinner, while Barbara was putting Vanessa to bed, he asked me how things were really going. "Honestly," I said, "some days are good. Some days I still want to punch a wall when I think about what happened. But we're making progress. She's trying, Larry. Really trying. And I'm trying to let go of the anger." "That's all you can do, man," Larry said. "No one's perfect. She fucked up badly. But she's owning it and you're giving her the chance to make it right. That takes strength from both of you." Work became a refuge and a challenge. My projects at the pipeline company were getting more complex, with more responsibility. There were days when burying myself in technical specifications and engineering problems was easier than dealing with the emotional complexity at home. But I made a conscious effort not to use work as an escape as I had before. I came home at reasonable hours. I was present for Vanessa's bedtime. I made time for Barbara. The financial aspect of our recovery was also important. That $35,000 I'd moved to a separate account stayed there, initially as insurance, then as a symbol. 3 months after the confrontation, I showed Barbara the account. "This is our security fund," I told her. "Not hidden from you but separate. If things fall apart, we both have something to start over with. But if we make it, it's for Vanessa's college fund." Barbara looked at the account statement and then at me. "You planned for both outcomes," she said. "I had to be realistic," I replied. "I wanted to fight for us, but I also had to protect myself and Vanessa." "I understand," she said. "And I don't blame you. Summer came, bringing with it Tulsa's oppressive heat. We took Vanessa to the gathering place, Tulsa's massive park, almost every weekend. Watching her play in the spray fountains, squealing with delight, reminded us both of what we were fighting for. This little girl deserved a stable home, 2 parents who loved each other and her. One evening in July, 6 months after the confrontation, Barbara and I were sitting on our small balcony after Vanessa had gone to sleep. The heat had finally broken, and a gentle breeze made the evening almost pleasant. "Can I ask you something?" Barbara said quietly. "Of course. Do you think you'll ever fully forgive me? Not just say you forgive me but really, deep down, let it go?" I was quiet for a long time, considering my answer carefully. "I don't know," I finally said. "Right now I'm not there yet. There are still moments when it all comes rushing back, and I feel the anger and hurt as fresh as the day I found out. But those moments are becoming less frequent. And I'm learning to live with what happened, to accept it as part of our story without letting it define us. Maybe that's what forgiveness will look like for us. Not forgetting but accepting and moving forward." Barbara nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "That's more than I deserve," she whispered. "Maybe," I said. "But it's what I'm capable of giving right now. And it has to be enough." We sat in silence after that, holding hands, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. The incident with Jack's email in June had been a setback. For a few days after, I found myself checking Barbara's devices obsessively again, the old paranoia returning. But her immediate transparency about it, her willingness to let me see everything, helped calm my fears. I did some digging through Larry's contacts and found out that Jack's business had indeed taken a hit. He'd closed one of his Oklahoma City locations and was struggling to keep the main Tulsa salon profitable. Part of me felt satisfaction at this. He'd helped destroy my peace of mind. It seemed only fair he paid some price. But mostly, I just wanted him to stay away from my family. Chelsea told us in one session that we'd reached a critical point in our recovery. "You've done the hard work of honesty, of confronting what happened and why," she said. "Now comes the even harder work, building a new normal. Not trying to get back to how things were before but creating something new. Something stronger because it's been tested." Building that new normal meant establishing new patterns. We instituted a weekly check-in, every Sunday night after Vanessa went to bed, where we'd talk honestly about how we were feeling, what we needed from each other, any concerns or fears. It was awkward at first, this formalized emotional conversation, but it became a valuable touchstone. We also made changes to protect our relationship. We agreed that neither of us would have close friendships with people of the opposite sex without the other meeting them. We'd always be transparent about our schedules and whereabouts. We'd prioritize our marriage, making sure to have regular date nights and intimate time together. Some might see these as restrictions, as signs of a damaged relationship. And maybe they were. But they were also guardrails, ways to ensure we didn't drift apart again, that we stayed connected and accountable to each other. Vanessa started noticing that Mommy and Daddy were happier. She couldn't articulate it, of course, at 2 years old, but we could see it in how she interacted with us. She was more relaxed, less clingy, as if she sensed the tension that had been present was finally easing. One night in August, I came home from work to find Barbara in tears in our bedroom. Not the guilty, ashamed tears of the early days, but deep, wrenching sobs. I immediately went to her, holding her as she cried. "What's wrong?" I asked when she'd calmed down enough to speak. I was looking at photos from our wedding," she said. "We were so happy, Oscar. So innocent and hopeful. And I destroyed that. I took something beautiful and pure and I ruined it." "Hey," I said, lifting her chin to look at me. "You made a terrible mistake. But you didn't destroy us. We're still here. We're still fighting. And what we're building now, it might not be innocent anymore, but it's real. It's tested. And maybe that makes it more valuable." "You really believe that?" she asked. "I'm trying to," I answered honestly. "Some days I believe it more than others. But I'm trying." We made love that night and it was different from before. Not just mechanically but emotionally. There was a rawness to it, a vulnerability from both of us. Afterwards, lying in the darkness, Barbara said, "I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you. I promise you that." "I know," I said. "I can see you trying. And that matters more than you know." As summer faded into fall, we hit the 9-month mark since the affair was exposed. 9 months of therapy, of hard conversations, of rebuilding trust brick by brick. 9 months of progress and setbacks, of hope and doubt, of fighting for something that many people would have abandoned. Barbara's freelance career was thriving. She'd built a reputation as a reliable, talented sound engineer, and she was getting more work than she could handle. We discussed the possibility of her eventually renting a small studio space outside our home, but agreed to wait. For now, having her work from home provided security for both of us. My career was also advancing. I'd been offered a promotion to senior pipeline engineer, with a significant raise. The extra money would help, especially with the costs of therapy and the security fund we were building for Vanessa. Life was beginning to feel normal again, or at least a new version of normal. We had routines. We had goals. We had moments of genuine happiness that weren't overshadowed by the weight of betrayal. But there were still hard days. Days when something would trigger a memory, a song on the radio that I knew Jack had sent her, driving past the road that led to Lake Tenkiller, seeing a couple being affectionate in public and wondering if Barbara had done the same with him. On those days I had to consciously choose to stay. To remember why I'd decided to fight for this marriage. To look at Vanessa and Barbara and remind myself that this was my family, flawed and hurt but still mine. Barbara had her own hard days. Days when the guilt threatened to overwhelm her, when she'd apologize again for what she'd done, when she'd ask if I was sure I wanted to stay. On those days I had to be strong for both of us, to reassure her that yes, I was still here, still trying, still believing we could make it. Thank you for watching this video. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.